Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by Dave Elleray. Dave is a lovely chap that I met about 3 years ago through a mutual friend, which we'll come back to in a second. He's based in the Lake District with his wife Jen, and the pair of them run an organisation called Freedom Thinking that runs a number of different things, from short courses to one-to-ones to retreats. And I think it's a weekly community group as well that you run as well. So you've been on my list of people to try and track down and speak to, and I've eventually got around to it. So thank you so much indeed for joining me today, Dave. Is there anything that I've missed in that introduction?
No, I don't think so. Just Dave, thanks so much for thinking of us, and thanks for hosting us, mate.
You're very, very welcome. Well, this is going to be a sort of two-parter. I'm speaking to Jen in a couple of days' time, so these two will run consecutively as episodes, which will be quite fun. And the first time that I've done that. But as you know, this podcast for me is about sharing my understanding of the principles, but also giving other people an opportunity for them to share theirs and see what comes from that in a really sort of gentle way. I wonder, just to sort of start us off, what's been fresh for you guys at the moment, or for you individually? What's been showing up recently that's caught your interest and got you excited?
For me, Dave, I think it's the power of love. When I came across the principles in 2013, before that, I came across Sid. I had an experience I got into a fight up in Scotland, up in not quite your neck of the woods, the other side of the country on the west coast. Got into a fight with some Scottish fellas who didn't particularly like Englishmen, especially not dickhead Englishmen. And I got into this fight, and I was at a really, really low point of my life. And I decided after this fight I was going to walk home. I was actually in a spot called Shield Egg, which is up near Torridon, just below Torridon, between Applecross and Torridon, overlooking Skye. Beautiful, phenomenal, one of my favourite places on earth. Just spectacular place. And I set off walking home. And on this walk home, I died. I think I was about 6 miles away from Shield Egg. And I just left. I just left this plane. And I went into a different plane. And in this next plane, it was the most spectacular experience I've ever experienced in my life. I can't describe any of it because it's a wordless space. There's no words. It doesn't exist in the realms of intellectual concept. It's before intellectual concept, if you like. But if I was to sum it up, it would be the most spectacular unconditional love. A love that transcends all things. I've not been the greatest human being on the planet. I've been a very violent man from time to time, and I've been a very unhappy, ungracious man. Been in prison, drinking drugs. I've been unkind. And to be in that space of total, wouldn't even say forgiveness, because forgiveness doesn't kind of operate in that space. It doesn't appear to me, but acceptance was the most wonderful thing. And in that space, I got to become aware of another entity that was there, and she called herself Lucy. And when I became aware of that, I had to come back to Earth. I had to come back to my body. And it was the last thing I actually wanted to happen. I wanted to stay where I was. I wanted to stay there. But I didn't get that choice, I don't think, as far as I'm aware. And I had to come back, and I was really pissed off I had to come back. But I'm really grateful now I came back. I speak to this entity. I've spoken to her since that moment. I ask her for help, and help comes. And one day, this was a time I was diagnosed with chronic depression that I'd have for life. I was suicidal, and I was planning my suicide when it occurred to me, why don't you ask Lucy for could I have some happiness in my life? Could I have some peace? And that's when a lady got hold of me out of the blue to go and look at a tree. I used to be a tree surgeon. She didn't have a tree in a garden. Her name was Sue. And she sat me down and told me the universe had got hold of her and that she needed to teach me something. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Wasting my time. I was cold. I was wet. I'd been working all day. I was tired. Very short on patience. But she had a twinkle in her eye, and I agreed. Fair enough. Let's go for it. And she's the lady who introduced me to Sid Banks. And that experience didn't clear up my depression, but it did show me that life is a continuation after death, that there's nothing to be afraid of in death. And it showed me that there is something, there are other beings beyond this dimension that care for us, that love us. And this is my experience. I don't expect anybody to believe me. It's entirely up to them what they believe, but this was my experience, that there are beings beyond this dimension or in the non-physical that do care about us. And I've had evidence of that ever since that moment, over and over again, over and over again. Long story short, later introduced me to Sid. It took me 9 weeks before I even clicked on a Sid video. In 2013, there was only 4 videos, I think, of actual Sid Banks. But as I listened to them, there was a kind of movement within me. I started to get these unfamiliar feelings. They were familiar feelings. I've experienced them before in my life, but not for a very long time, of optimism.
Mm-hmm.
And I went for a walk, and then I got to have another experience. And this experience, I always would say it's more earthbound, more grounded experience. Again, unconditional love was the dominant feature. An experience that I can't explain. I could travel in time in the moment, not like I can travel in time now by thinking and going back in time and forward, and like imagination and memory. Not that. It was in the moment, actual experience of being present in the past and witnessing something that was taking place in my life that was very difficult and challenging for me. And I got to be present in a moment that I'd already experienced, but from a place of complete non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see clear as day what was going on. No judgment, no, that person's wrong. But I got to see it clear as day what was being played out, and I got to come back, and I could see my own body at a couple of points from a field view. I was overlooking a field when I had this experience, because I went for a walk after I listened to Sid, and I was looking back at my own body, and I could go at will. I went to a woodland, and I went into a woodland I've never visited, and this was all non-located within my physical body. And I was told in that moment that there are gifts within consciousness and thought that mankind is not consciously evolved enough yet to utilize, but it's coming for us. It's coming. We are on a trajectory of discovery from within our own being, the true magnitude of what it is to be a human being. Up until that point, I thought human beings were just an evolutionary process of one thing's led to another, and somehow what we've been taught at school. But after that experience, I realized that's not true. The human being is a spiritual being. It is an infinitely love-filled being. Its essence is one of love. And that love, when we discover it from within ourselves, this what I would call divine love, this transcendental love, this primordial love. Now, I don't know what love is. I do not know what love is. I often liken it to water and say, we tend to think of love as being a feeling state, which, yeah, you feel it. You also feel water as wet. Water feels wet, but water is so much more than wet. Okay, love to me is so much greater than just this wonderful feeling. The wonderful feeling's wonderful. Oh, it's fucking fantastic. But this love that is at the heart of our being is this creative force. And when I discovered that, I came back into my now moment, Dave, body, earthly dimension plane. And one of the first things I noticed was I walked on a different planet, for want of a better word. It was the same hills, same trees, but I walked on a different world. And from that moment, so many of the people I used to have problems with disappeared. I literally haven't seen them. I literally haven't seen them. So many people disappeared out of my life in that moment. But that love, it destroyed me. And the me that it destroyed was angry, depressed, deeply insecure, hard man. I died. That aspect of me vanished. And what was left was, I used to think that my power to intimidate people and to be bigger and overbearing on people was actually a superpower. And I used to use it to my advantage all the time. I used to scare the shit out of people. I was a big lad. I was climbing trees every day and I had a really bad temper. And I used to think that my hard man was my superpower. And I exercised that. But it became very obvious that no, my hard man was my insecurity. I was constantly defending myself from a world that wasn't even attacking me. I just perceived threat around every single corner, especially with men. And in that awakening, I call it an awakening because it was literally like I stood on earth for the first time in my life. I was 33 years old. And it was like I stood on earth for the first time in my life and I looked around and it was beautiful. The world was beautiful and it was filled with the most wonderful people, the most spectacular nature, the most immaculately conceived ideas of nature and wonderful, phenomenal, inexplicable connectedness of all things, just this wonderful love that permeates all things. And I stood there in total freedom. And the thing that set me free was love. And the thing that you asked me the question, what's been kind of fresh for me, I was cycling with Jen the other day and I said, just can you just remember this statement, please? I said, love does not require anything else in order to exist, but fear does. And so I managed to remember that statement. Love doesn't require anything else to exist, but fear does. Love is the heart, the center of existence. But fear it requires something else to be afraid of. Now, that may be the future, that may be the past, it may be you, it may be them, it may be COVID, it may be, I don't know, financial loss, it may be pigeons, I don't know. But fear requires something else to exist. And in that in that it was in the collapsing of there is something else that exists outside of ourself that all my depression vanished. It was in the discovery that there is nothing that I've ever experienced that was ever outside of myself. There is no outside of myself. There is just eternal experience coming from within. And that eternal experience is created from what we would use the words mind, consciousness, or thought, which are just really a metaphor to describe the singular force of love that is eternally creating from within our being without judgment. It doesn't judge a single thing. It allows us to experience the whole of human experiential life. And within that, we have the capacity to dream up our idea of an ego that we think is ultimately keeping us safe. That's why we dream up ego, in my opinion. That's why we dream up ego, because we're continuously seeing fear. We experience fear. So we create this ego to try and keep us safe, whether that be, I need to look good in front of other people because I'm afraid of what they think.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's I need to be bigger than them because I need to be able to intimidate them, or whatever the hell it be, it doesn't really matter. I'm not good enough was one of Jen's insights into her ego. But we have this capacity and it's the only way we get to experience is from this internal expression of reality being the magical display of consciousness that we are. Now, I don't know what consciousness is. I don't know what thought is. I don't know what mind is. I don't know what love is. And to me, when I reflect, I think that's the most exciting thing.
Mm.
For as much that I have gained insight into, it has brought about more questions than it has brought me information. It has brought me, as much as it's brought me clarity, it's brought me, I don't have a frigging clue.
Yeah, I think that's really the heart of everything. You know, and I love the idea that fear can only exist with other, with other, with something else to play with, to bounce off, and that in itself being a helpful thing to understand.
Yeah, totally.
You know, if I'm feeling frightened, it's that feeling is trying to protect me from something that I can't see at the moment.
That's right.
And with what you've just described at the end there, in terms of what I know at the moment is flawed, but it's exciting, and the excitement is there's more to explore and more to learn, and that's gonna go on forever. That's an expansive unknown rather than a fear-based one of, oh my goodness, I'm missing something. Does that make sense?
Totally, man. I mean, if people, Jen had this pointed out to her once, you know, we always live in the unknown. It's the only true fact is the unknown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you boil it down, nobody knows what thought is. You cannot know thought. You cannot know mind. You cannot know consciousness. That's just a metaphor to describe the internal workings of spirit. But, you know, if the very fabric of our experience is inexplicable, then technically you can't really explain anything. You know, it really is a grand illusion, as Sid Banks said. It truly is a grand illusion. And just sticking on that point, my mother-in-law asked me to cut a hedge once. I said to her, do you want it spirit level, or do you want it going with the gradient of the land? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, do you want it spirit level, or going down the garden like with the land of the garden? She went, spirit level. I was like, good thinking. I like that. Good. Did this hedge, got it all beautifully topped. Comes out in the morning, she goes, you didn't do what I asked for. I said, what? She went, I asked for it to go with the gradient of the land. I said, you didn't. You asked for spirit level. She went, well, I don't want it. She said, I want it to do with gradient. Me and her had this massive Barney, and I was just like, oh. Long story short, I was, I'm not doing it. And I didn't want to do it in the first place. And I got really upset that I got so upset with my mother-in-law, Liz. But I went and sat. I got so upset that I got so upset with Liz because I love her dearly. I was just so pissed off. I was just like, for fuck's sake, Liz. And the next morning I woke up and I get this from time to time, these little messages come through. And this little voice said to me, it said, you know, the further into suffering you go, the further into unreality you have entered. The further into suffering you go, the further into unreality you have entered. I remember thinking to myself, yeah, that's true. But that's when we start to take life really, really seriously. When do we start taking life seriously? It's when we start feeling discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we really start to kind of knuckle down and double down on trying to fix ourselves and heal ourselves. But in this little statement, the further into unreality you go, the further into suffering you go, the further into unreality you have entered. It was kind of like, that's the time we should just be backing off. That's the time we should be, with awareness, when we start to gain awareness, into that notion is to allow ourselves, is to find that space within ourselves to kind of go, right, here we go. I'm off on one, which we all do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
Yeah.
We do it. We're human beings. And to allow ourselves the grace of just kind of feeling, and accepting that we are going to feel these things. And I don't know, the less seriously, one of the gifts that came about for me was I wasn't afraid to feel anymore. I didn't see my feelings as indicative of being broken or mentally ill or anything like that. They were just, well, they were experiences. I'm nature boy. I look at nature. I friggin' love nature. And human beings are nature.
Yep.
There's no escaping that point. And we've tried to by calling it the natural world and whatnot and the human world. No, it's all nature. There is only whatever creates nature. We are nature. And whatever creates nature is a deeply intelligent thing. The more science looks at nature, it doesn't go, well, the more we look at nature, the more stupid we actually think it is. The more we go, actually, this is frigging phenomenal. Nature is phenomenal. And the more and more scientists are waking up to the idea, yeah, perhaps there is an intelligent origin for existence. Which kind of, where does human intelligence come from?
Mm-hmm.
It has to have an origin. And I look at nature and I think to myself, I see the perfection in nature. I see its ability to deal with everything it's thrown in. Science said nothing would survive in Chernobyl for 1,000 years, and it's teeming with life that is resistant to radiation. Nature finds its way because it's intelligent and it's perfect. And so for human beings to be built with all these feeling capacities to infinitely feel, it's like nature didn't make a mistake in doing that. So therefore, there is no mistake when we feel any of those feelings. There's no kind of, it's not wrong. There's no such thing as a wrong feeling. But we've kind of grown up in a culture that said, no, these feelings are illnesses. You feel depressed. Well, you've got an illness. I was diagnosed with chemical imbalances of my brain. Total crap. I can create those chemicals in my sleep, in my dreams. If I dream I'm falling off a cliff, I will release adrenaline and cortisol. And you'll see my body have a physical reaction. If I'm falling off a cliff in a dream, I'm safely tucked up in bed, but my body's going to sweat. I'm probably going to squeal a little bit. My heart's going to pound. Test my blood, I'll be full of adrenaline and cortisol. When they tested my blood back then and they found all this adrenaline and cortisol, not one doctor said to me, Dave, look, you're full of adrenaline and cortisol. What have you been thinking a lot about lately? It had been how hard done to I am, how much I want to kick the shit out of that person, how stressed out I am at work, how much I don't want to be here, and all these thoughts release chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Thought first, thought first, mind first. Yeah. No, it's quite, I find it such a fascinating thing that I know other people on Earth have discovered this before, but en masse, we're just starting to discover that, that we actually live in an internal reality.
Mm,
Abide in an abide, is that even a word? We dwell in an internal reality, and you can never experience outside of it. So everything we experience is a creation of our own mind. And Jesus summed it up in the book of Thomas when he said, "It's done unto you as you believe." The way we believe is how we see the world. It's how the world appears to us. It's done unto us as we believe. As we believe, so the world appears. I believed that there were terrible people in this world. I was racist. I'd hold my hands up and say I've been a racist man. Not anymore. I see the beauty in all people. It's an amazing thing when you discover that inner part of yourself, and you discover the inner part of everyone else. You know who everyone else is. What you don't know yet is their dream of who they're pretending to be outside of this love state. That's the bit we get to know. Those are the people we get to know. As I get to know Dave Hill. It's like I get to meet the character that love is generating as Dave Hill, and Dave Hill gets to meet the character that love is generating as Dave Elleray. That's what we're playing this game of life as. And to me, it's this. We're always searching for love, peace, and happiness, and joy, and the feeling of feeling safe and unbreakable. Well, that's our true state of being. That's who we are first, and that's why we search for it, because we get so lost in our stories and in our characters, and we start to identify. It's like when Jesus said, "I am," stick with "I am." But what do? We go to the next word. I am depressed. Oh, I identify with depressed. I am hungry. I identify with hungry. I'm straight. I am gay. We identify with that. I am male. I'm female. We identify with that. We identify with what comes after I am. But the I am is really the oneness of life. It's that never changes. It's the eternal state of being. I am. I am for eternity. So whatever word comes after I am is ego.
It's the armor that we put on to help us step through whatever we're frightened of in that moment.
Yeah, whatever we're dreaming is threat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 It keeps circling back around this idea of being lost and remembering what that's physically like in a physically lost, sense when actually I'm still on the planet. I've just been heading in a direction that I'm currently uncertain of. And being frightened of stopping for fear of what everybody else will think about the fact that I don't have faith in the direction that we're going in and it's on me. And the more uncomfortable I get in that uncertainty, to the point where I go, actually, no, just need to stop and check. And then realizing that I am still on the planet, that I have got, I haven't gone that far because I'm on my feet. So I haven't walked off the edge of my map, but I do have the capacity then to just settle and work out what I know to be true around me, maybe even ask for help, but the feeling of being lost in that moment and the sort of visceral, oh my goodness, how is this going to play out by continuing to go is all really, really helpful because it's trying to help me get to the point of just stopping
Yes.
and having a look and just clarifying because I might be going in the right direction, at which point, great. And if I'm not, also great, let's correct and go off in whatever direction we should be going in.
Yeah.
It's just an amazingly well-designed but misunderstood system that we live in. And what's really cool about the work that we're doing is helping people see that for themselves, realize they've got everything they need to navigate the world
Totally.
all the time, and they have done forever. off you go play, see what you can create from this point on, trusting yourself and the design that you are part of, and seeing what where that takes us.
That's right, man. Totally. And enjoying the ride.
Mm.
You know, we do take all the shit that's going down in the world right now, all the what you'd look at as being not very productive and destructive and detrimental to humanity. Well, that's all born of people thinking and feeling, and it. I remember being out in South Africa and a friend of mine was crying, and she said, we're at a soup kitchen. She said, the problem South Africa faces is too big. Look at the state of this. She said, look at the state of South Africa. And Jen and I sat next to her and said, it's not. The problem South Africa faces is tiny. It's massive if you look outside and you look to redistribution of land equally, you look at job equality, pay equality, equality in politics, getting rid of the corruption out of politics, which I think needs to happen globally. And, all the external things, equal housing and all that kind of stuff, equity. Yeah, it looks astronomical, but when you realize that it's only held together by thought, the way people think about one another is what's created South Africa. And every country it all starts with thought. Thought is the creative substance from which we create feeling, action, experience. It's the singular nature. Somebody once came to one of Jen's retreats and she said, what you're saying makes so much sense. She said, because my husband he does original biblical translations. So he takes the Bible in its original form, I don't know how, but he translates it. And she said 20 years ago, he came home and said he believes the opening statement in the New Testament was inaccurate. She said he came home and said he thought if he was to translate it now, it would be, in the beginning was thought. Thought was with God and thought was God. She said that's how he came home 20 years ago and said that how he would translate it. She said, you're saying the same thing effectively, which, yeah, we are saying the same thing. And I don't know if people can realize the power of thought. We're mesmerized, absolutely frigging mesmerized by our experiences. We're mesmerized by our feelings. We're mesmerized by the outside world. Mesmerized by it, totally distracted by it. We have no awareness of our own inner workings. I didn't. That's why I ended up where I wanted to hang myself. And sometimes to this day, I don't. I don't have awareness of it 100% of the time by any means, but I come back to it. I come back to it pretty quickly. And I'm grateful for that awareness to just come back. And I've got Jen as well, and we never talk about the principles really. We just enjoy our lives together. People assume we must talk about the principles all the time. The last thing we talk about, we just go and have crack and we just live as human beings. And I don't mean people who don't speak Northern, crack isn't.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, in a non-chemical sense of crack.
Yeah, exactly. In a
like the Irish sense.
Yeah, exactly. In like the Celtic Gaelic sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's it, the problem the world faces is misunderstanding. It's people trying to make themselves feel safe through exploiting other people, through manipulating other people, through controlling other people. And there's a real innocence in all of that. And I feel like that's one of the things I keep coming back to. And every time I see it, I release burden. The more I come back to the innocence of other people. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday whose daughter has just took on a 4-year-old. She fostered her because the parents weren't capable of looking after her. I was like, oh, bless them. That's really hard, isn't it? She was like, bless them. I said, yeah. I said, imagine having your child taken off because you can't actually look after them. That must be horrific. She was like, you're a better man than me. She's like, I say, kill him. I'm like, right. Yeah. I'm grateful I don't live in that world anymore. I'm grateful I can see the I've stopped a couple of fellas 2 days ago from shoplifting in TK Maxx. I'm like, lads, just put it back. Just put it back. And they wouldn't. So I said, well, give it to me. I'll take it back. So they gave it all to me. They're like, you're a fucking grass. I said, that's cool, mate. I said, I haven't been called a grass for years. And I said, cheers for that, buddy. He says, if you think I've been stealing, call the police. I said, look, I said, I'm giving you the opportunity just to walk away. I said, just give me the stuff and go and have a good day. And when I left, I felt so sorry for him. I could just see their innocence. You know, they obviously have a drug problem. They're not in the best state. And I remember not so long ago, a couple of years ago, Jen got sexually assaulted by a healer. And at first I wanted to knock the shit out of him. When she first told me, I was up for going round there and knocking his front door down. But when we went to bed that night, both of us lay there and sanity had returned, and we both agreed that it was really sad to be present at a time when an 80-year-old man has really fucked his life up. And he went to prison for 16 months. He had assaulted a minor before that. You know, but we've seen him twice now since, and both of us just feel, we don't feel any animosity towards him. And that to me is a gift as a man who carried animosity, who carried judgment, who really dwelt on the past. You know, really carried the past around with me, and I wore it like a frigging badge. I was a total victim. I was only really a victim of my own creation. You know, my own inability to think outside of my own boxes that I'd created for myself. But yeah, again, that forgiveness, it all comes back to love. And I was helping my dad fit some blinds. Dad does blind fitting, and this was a couple of months ago. My dad's busy as hell, so I gave him a hand, and I was with this old lady, and she was telling me her husband had died a couple of months before. He went in for a routine operation. The hospital phoned him up and said, you've got to come now. They botched the operation. He was bleeding like hell. He was bleeding out. And she said they were packing him full of absorbents as he was talking to us. And she said he knew he was going. There was 5 of us managed to make it to the hospital. She said, and he just calm as you like. She said, he just went round each and every single one and said, so-and-so, so-and-so, I love you. So-and-so, so-and-so, I love you. Got round to his wife, I love you. And then he left. Why? That was too much for me. I started crying. And she gave me a hug and she said, oh, it's all right, love, it's all right. I said, I know he's all right, because I do know he's all right. He's all right. I said, but I think why I'm really crying, love, is because he gives us all the secret. He's given us all the key to life. I said, because if it comes down to it, in your very last moments, I said, I'm sure that man had so many different experiences. She said, oh, he did. He did. I said, he could have spoken about anything in his life. In the final moments, he could have spoken about anything. His achievements, his this, his that. I said, but he chose to say, I love you. I said, that's what it all came to. The pinnacle of his life came to the very last moments. The one thing he wanted to share as if just before he left this earth was, I love you. I said, so if that's what it's about at the end, I think that's what it's about all the way through. So I think that man has shown us that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a stick of rock. It runs straight through.
Yeah. And you don't always see it when you don't look at it from the right angle. But once you get a glimpse of the right angle and you become aware of that, like it's It's the greatest gift.
Yeah. Dave, that's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
I think that's, it very neatly has come full circle.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been really kind of you to join me today. I think there's a lot to unpack in there, but in a really beautiful way. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Is there anything that you guys have got coming up that you'd like to share about?
Well, we haven't actually booked anything just this present moment. We're looking at, given the date that this goes out, but we're looking at doing a retreat probably in January, February of next year. But we're always available for individual clients and stuff like that. We do intensives, we do one-to-ones. We work with couples and families and all kinds of people, and we have wonderful success with people who have been diagnosed and damned by the psychological system. People who come, we love our work, and we love seeing change in people, and it's available to anybody who wants it. It's available. You can have it. You can have your wonderful life. It's available. It's already there. To me, this is all about noticing. The whole gift of this conversation, all it is a noticing. It's a noticing what's true. And yeah, so if anybody wants to get in touch with us, you can contact us via email, which is info@freedomthinking.co.uk. Our website is freedomthinking.co.uk. Don't expect much from our website. It's a bit crap because neither Jenny or I really want to spend much time on the internet. We enjoy our life. But no, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, please get in touch. My phone number is on our website. Feel free to get in touch. And yeah, I just send everybody who's listening to this so much love. And Dave, I send you so much love, and thanks so much for hosting me.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to see you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat with Jen in the next few days and see what the next chapter looks like. But it's been really cool to spend time with you today. And yeah, fingers crossed our paths cross physically again at some stage.
They will.
Yeah, they definitely will.
As soon as we can, so sure our paths cross.
Definitely. Cool. Look after yourself.
Lots of love, Dave. God bless.
You too.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.